Honorable Dr. Deborah Barasa, the Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Climate Change and Forestry, Mr. Kitonga Mugambi, the Principal Secretary for the Department of Forestry, Mr. Joel Larumonya, the Principal Secretary, the State Department of Public Works, my friend Dr. Festus Ngeno, the Principal Secretary for Environment and Climate Change, who is following us online, the Governor of Elgeyo Marakwet County, Honorable Wesley Rotich, the second Senator for Elgeyo Marakwet County, Honorable William Kisan, the Members of Parliament, Honorable Timothy Rotich, Honorable Adam Siksanai, and Honorable Caroline Mereche, the Speaker of the County Assembly, the senior government officials present from the Ministry of Environment and other ministries, senior leaders from the private sector, and those representing the private sector, those representing community, daughters and sons of Cherangany ecosystem, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I stand before you this morning not only as a Cabinet Secretary for Interior National Administration, but also truly as a son born, brought up, and who lives in the both sides of Cherangany Hills. Actually, almost all sides of Cherangany Hills, from the south in Wasingishu to the east in Embogut and to the west in Cherangany constituency. So the lush green rolling hills you saw in the short film shown here raised and nourished us, a number of us who are here. And if there are people of Cherangany ecosystem, simameni tu. Ni wachache wako hapa leo today, but I see a number of you are here. Thank you very much. Pigia hao makofi. Yeah, thank you very much. Many people don't realize that if you are in the entire, almost the entire Elgeyo Marakwet County, a larger part of West Pokot, some good parts of Trans Nzoia and Wasingishu, you are in the Cherangany ecosystem. But the rest of the country, up to Egypt, is a beneficiary. So, the continent actually. As you know, for those of you who studied international law and who follow water issues and so forth, you know Nile Treaty is a very important treaty globally. And you know how it is important. The Egyptian ambassador here, apart from the entire work he does for his country, his main job is to always survey and check the activities around River Nile, which is Lake Victoria from this part of all, because it's part of the treaty, monitoring for the treaty. So it's a very serious ecosystem, by the way. And the next function, the Egyptian ambassador should be here, and Egypt as a country to work and support us. If you thought that was breathtaking what you saw, I'm telling you it serves as a very sad reminder for me and for many of us for the degradation that has happened in the last 3 to 4 decades. The forest was once thicker, the springs cleaner, and the rivers were more reliable than they are today. When I grew up in Koropken, which is in Embogut ward, it was normal. Because I used to take care of our sheep and so forth, it was normal to interact with calabash monkeys. Is that what Koroit is called? Yeah? Columbus monkeys. Sorry. Columbus monkeys. Beautiful. It was really, really beautiful because you wake up in the morning and it is just at your doorstep. And then it was normal also for us, as you take care of the sheep and the cows, it was also normal to lose 1 or 2 because of leopards. There were very nice, all kind of antelopes, gazelles. We used to have, I'm told now if earlier, because there are places named after elephants. Elephants used to be so many in the highland part of Cherangany Hills. And so for us really, there is nothing to celebrate here. The forest used to be until your doorstep. Because you see, if you Koroken and Kaptirbai and other places are glades, the open places that God created. So people were living in the glades. We were born and brought up in the glades, but the forest surrounding us was supposed to remain intact. The bamboo tree in places like Lombenwo, Kosich, all the way up to now, you go to Kamalokon, was something else. You need to see some of our pictures. My father kept here a few pictures when we were young. There's a small one where a picture is taken in our compound in Koroken, and the entire Kosich, Kamalokon, Katapseron is seen, and it is full of bamboo and then thick trees and so forth. I saw it with my own eyes when it was being destroyed, and perhaps I contributed. But I believe the government contributed most, and I'll tell you how. So all this, the degradation that you see is as a consequence of unregulated human activity, charcoal burning, farming, overgrazing. In fact, we are blaming overgrazing for nothing. It's not even overgrazing, but mostly logging. When compounded with the adverse effects of climate change, landslides and resources generally cause conflict. Let me say before even I go there, why I think that this logging was being encouraged by government. Yeah, it was government that caused that forest to be destroyed. When I hadn't grown up when the first sort of enforcement done by government to remove people from the forest happened in, I wasn't really an adult, early 80s. So I didn't see. Let me speak about what I saw. In 1988, I think December, around November, December, government decided that they're going to remove people from Embobut forest by force. But you know, the Embobut forest was not accessible. The roads were terrible. So you really have to mobilize great funding for you to access the forest. And so they brought many police officers, many KFS officers. They came with vehicles, Land Rovers and so forth. And then, you know, I saw our house burning. So we were just living. So they burned all the houses there. And so all of us became homeless. So the next day I was to go to school. And you know, the distance between our home and the school was about 6 kilometers, CHERISH Primary School. And all after the burning is done, you still have to leave. So I remember, as the police leave to go to their camp, either it's Stirrup or they go all the way to Kapsawar or Chebiemit or Retain. We also that evening go back to our destroyed homes to build a small shanty. And so you build a small thing up, you go to the forest, get the bamboo, get some trees very quickly, and build something, cover. There were no politics, so you cover it. Sometimes I remember we used to sleep on the ground, on the floor. So because you are all, there was no time to build anything, the entire family sleeps in one open place. So my father on this side, followed by his firstborn, which is me, then secondborn, which is another boy, then thirdborn, which is a girl, so that the smaller boy picks from here to the mother at the end. So you sleep all of you there till the next day. The next day, the first thing you do from 5 in the morning is to go to the forest and get bamboo and start building and building. That was not our home, it was the neighbors, it was the next home, it was the next home, it was the next home. And because there was no way KFS would sustain presence in the area, so every time they come, we wait, they go, we go to the forest, we cut the trees. In fact, I grew up knowing that the only way I was going to live in peace, my family and my neighbors were going to live in peace, was to destroy a Bokut forest. Because I understood that if we were to finish the trees as fast as possible, then government will not have an interest. We will tell them, you know, you guys, you can't burn our houses anymore. There is no forest to protect. So, second, because of the model that was used in conservation, the police will not go to the thick forest. That is now Lombenwo, Katapseron, Kosij, Koi Koi, and all those areas. They will not go. And you will know, you see the map, the most degraded forest is that part where I come from. And so I'm giving you, a life story. It's not theories. So the thing is, because the police would fear going on the security team, and if you told someone I was going to be a security minister, that would have been very far-fetched. When they go to when it's the forest, they don't go there. So the best thing is to go and live in the thicker part, take your cows and everything there, and leave children and women at the escarpment, that is Kagumiti area, Kamogo and Kapchabao, up to Mungu. But men and livestock had to go inside there. What do? They go and open a place, cut trees. That's how we finished that forest. That's how we finished that forest. In fact, had this model we are adopting today been applied in Mbobut forest, we would not be here to have this discussion. Because when the Mzungu left our grandparents and gave them permit, the great permit had conditions. No farming, you live here, you only do grazing, and you can only have a certain number of livestock with a permit being given for you to graze. So then, as they lived there, they knew you can only do honey and some grazing, and there is no touching the forest. And remember, even in the 1932, Swaneton plan for blah blah was 54, but in 1932, the boundary for the 1932, the promise was that you will, what we call Spencer line and so forth. The promise also at that point, because I had to do my research later because of a life experience. The promise was that these people will now be fairly settled, and that fairly settled is going on up to now from 1932. I can give you stories and stories of Mbobut as somebody who has been brought up there. So that degradation is as a result, largely, blame not the people, largely it's about the model of enforcement that was applied by the state. That is why I am telling you here that CHERISH has very important components. The last component there is harmony. It must, the enforcement and the processes we are dealing with to foster unity and harmony among the people, and it must involve these same people to understand that this is their forest, it is not government forest, and government is coming to support you to protect your forest because your life and livelihoods is dependent on this forest. So therefore, the Chesongot landslide disaster of the night of October 31st last year is still fresh in our minds. We lost lives, livelihoods, and critical infrastructure because the hill slopes left bare and unstable, were left bare and unstable due to human settlement and could no longer absorb the heavy downpour. A similar tragedy was witnessed in 2019 in West Pokot, in places like Sondan, Tamkal, in the same Elgeyo Marakwet in Detail, in West Pokot, Chesongoch. When I was campaigning in 2011, 2012, there was also a very terrible landslide in the hanging valley of Kocholwo, and you will see a picture online, which is usually used by many people. I have a shoe. I am holding my shoes and walking on mud when we are trying to look for people who are injured and their lives and so forth. Usually, it's used to say, "I have not built roads in my county." They think it's. They try to use it for a picture of today. So when they want to limit me, there is also another problem that has haunted this ecosystem for decades. I'm speaking of conflict, speaking of banditry and kept rustling. For far too long, the Kerio Valley has been theater of violence. But why does this happen? It happens because when resources become scarce, when rivers dry up, when grazing lands dwindle, when there is no water for livestock, when there is no plan for livelihood, desperation turns into conflict. The cattle rustler is often just a young man who has lost hope because his environment has collapsed, or his government has not involved him in the protection of that environment, or that they are desperate for livelihood. Mother Earth is sending a message of distress through the increased landslide, We need to act to save Cherangany Hills ecosystem and the people who depend on it. It's a massive undertaking, but with our collective determination and cooperation, it is achievable. For perspective, which has been shared, this ecosystem spans 414,928 hectares across 4 counties, including 22 gazetted forests covering about 100,000 hectares, and feeds over 22 major rivers flowing into Lake Victoria and Lake Turkana, among others. It is also home to unique species like the brother monkey and the crowned eagle, rich in indigenous heritage from the Sengwer, Okiek, Pokot, various subclans of both communities, Pokots, Marakwets, the cradle of athletic excellence that continues to inspire the world. Some of the top athletes grew up and still train in this ecosystem. This is not just a forest, it's a national life support system. Today, that system is under severe pressure. 15% of the ecosystem is already extremely degraded, over 62,000 hectares. 67% is moderately degraded, and 41,547 hectares of forest cover lost. 96,757 hectares of grassland is also degraded. What we are witnessing is not just an environmental degradation, it is the slow erosion of security, livelihoods, and stability. This is why we joined hands as friends and professionals from the 4 counties and initiated CHERISH, a 10-year Kenya shillings 14.7 billion strategic intervention anchored in President Dr. William Samoei Ruto's 15 billion tree agenda. There are 4 objectives in this program. First is the restoration of the 62,038 hectares of highly degraded escarpments and riparian lands. We want to have a honesty conversation about the Spencer line and to save the to ensure that people follow the Spencer line. If you go home, you know, Mr. Spencer, who was an agriculture officer, is the one who walked along the escarpment to guide people to ensure that they are following up that line and introduced various crop methods. I hope you know. I don't know if it is everywhere, but where I come from, that huge cabbage, the big cabbage is called Spencer. Where we come from. Sometimes you think it's all over Kenya, because Mr. Spencer, I think, is the one who introduced among them that cabbage. So you go home, you'll hear wazee wanasema, hey, iliona cabbage yangu mzuri sana ile ya Spencer. And that is legacy. That is really legacy. For example, who was there many years ago to leave crops that are named after him. Yeah. Up to now, that's called Spencer. Number 2 is to protect 20 springs and secure our water towers. You know, Aror Dam and Bobut Dam that were supposed to be constructed, Kimwaret Dam, are actually depending on this ecosystem. You know that Chebara Dam, which serves largely Wasingishu and particularly Lore Town, is a very important. You know Kapolet water intake project that serves Kitale and all those areas is extremely. You know Murunj Dam that is supposed to serve Kapenguria and the entire place up to Chebereria is very important. So we are talking about livelihoods. We are talking about protecting springs, rivers, protecting life, protecting Takwel Dam, protecting Turkana, protecting Kerio Valley. You know, there is no Kerio Valley without Cherangany Hills. There is absolutely no Kerio Valley without Cherangany Hills. And let me tell you this. I know for sure, if Cherangany Hills is not restored, everybody from the valley will be coming up and the conflicts will continue. When that time, when there was cutting of trees so much, everybody was from the valley was coming to claim ancestral presence up there. And you know, because they had guns and so forth, there was a lot of fights from Tuturum to Maron to every corner of that place. So, and part of it is still giving us security challenges even as of now. So it's important to protect this. 3, create 500,000 green jobs for youth in the beekeeping, agroforestry, and ecotourism. I am not ashamed to say my ward is one of the poorest wards in the country. That is a fact. And it is driven by this correlation between people not having titles, being chased around and out of the forest, and at the same time, being unable, like nearly nobody in Mbobuta has a title. You know that, including myself. We are all squatters.
At 10, in 2 minutes time, there's going to be a drill for in this building. Yeah. So we need to tell people so that they don't allow for haram. They're having a drill.
Let them do it fast. Tell them that. Thank you. So, so the point I'm trying to make is that, where was I? I was saying that creating these jobs is very important, because you are living in a place where there's no title, there's no guarantee for a job. Everybody from Mbabut, they make little money, they go to Cherangany, you go and buy land. Everybody from there, you go to Wazigishi, because there is no land, there is no house, there is no what. I really look forward to this program, giving people proper livelihoods, because we are involving them to protect the forest, and we are helping them to plant trees, we are helping them for beekeeping, we are supporting their education scholarships, we will make sure that ecotourism is returned, and involve the people by telling them this is the benefits that you are going to get as a community. And I was just using Mbabut as an example. Where this man comes from, my friend, Joy Arumonya, I don't think it's the most dangerous place. His own house is the most dangerous. Because you know what happened, and you allow me to say this, while we were being harassed by the police in the Mbabut side, the Pokot side were allowed to just continue. So they actually finished the most, steep areas of the forest. If you go to Tabach, you go to Tabach and along all those escarpments of Tabach. I mean, the landslide that happened in Sondany and Tamkal were inevitable. And it is not that we all know, even sitting in this house, that it will happen again, unless something is done. So, and Parwa and all those areas. So, both sides in Sigor, Lelam, and also some parts of Kabenguria, it's important for us to work on the environmental related issues. Fourth is build peace building through sports, dialogue, and shared economic opportunities. We believe that now that we have done massive security operation in Kerio Valley, we continue with Pokot side, which is ongoing now. We believe that eventually now we focus on peace building and shared economic opportunities for all. We have a plan. We need now partners. This is why today I want to ask the private sector, if you use water from Trans Nzoia Basin, if your hydropower depends on Takwe, or if your tea estate needs rain, this is your supply chain security. Invest in Cherish. It will not just be an act of charity, it's also an insurance policy for your bottom line.